This is News Conference Extra with Conan Nolan.
Good morning and welcome to News Conference Extra, a special segment of Today in LA Weekend. It's our morning consult with Chuck Todd, host of Meet the Press, which airs every Sunday morning at 8 o'clock. So, Chuck, lots to talk about the impeachment, but let's go to Thursday's debate. It was interesting. It wasn't boring. You have the mayor of Burbank, California, actually he's the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, about the same size, who is not polling well in the NBC Wall Street Journal poll. He's about fourth, based on what I saw, 9%. But he's doing so well in Iowa and New Hampshire, he became the target.
He did. I mean, he was treated like the front runner, and at the end of the day, Iowa is what trumps the national polls. We always tell people that. Pay more attention in the early states, and sure enough, the candidates are. So, yes, he was that candidate. Look, I think, though, when we look at the big picture of this debate, there's if it has a larger impact on this race, it'll be because Amy Klobuchar got something out of this debate. On paper, I thought she had her. Look, she benefited the most from the smaller field. You know, it allowed her to be a front runner, to sort of be in the mix with the front runners. I thought she did a better job hitting Pete, hitting the mayor than Warren did. But there's a problem for Buttigieg, Warren, and Klobuchar. Sanders and Biden both did fine, too. And in fact, I would argue that Sanders may have had his best debate performance, and that Biden, compared to other Biden performances, it was the best Biden we've seen in a debate. And ultimately, you know, did they do anything to lose support? And I think in the case of Sanders in particular, he was so comfortable being the progressive candidate. And we're watching Elizabeth Warren struggle. You can see that she is not sure of her footing right now. The Medicare for All thing has certainly had an impact on her, and you could feel it a bit last night in some of her answers that she is a candidate whose footing isn't as sure as it once was. And it's like she's not all in as a progressive. She's trying to find a middle ground, and as everybody who tries to split the difference here finds out, that's a tough place to be. Kamala Harris knows that very well.
You made a reference to this during the coverage of the impeachment vote in the House of Representatives. I'd like you to expand on it a little bit. So there's the impeachment vote. We've taken the measure of the country. Nothing's changed. The Quinnipiac poll indicates that actually support for impeachment has dropped at least a few points. And after using this, which is a fairly extreme constitutional remedy, and nothing changes in terms of the perception and the popular support for it, have the Democrats boxed them in with this president?
Well, we'll find out on Election Day. I mean, that's the problem. I think that is the risk of all this, right? That is the risk. I think there was risk in not doing this for them, and there was risk in doing this for them. I think the greater risk for the Democrats was not doing it, and it was sort of inside the Democratic Party. I've always viewed this as sort of like the Iraq War vote. You know what the short-term politically safe ground may not be safe ground to be in the long term, particularly in a Democratic primary. So I think that's been some of that calculus there. Here's what I would say on this. This is why I think Nancy Pelosi can't play too many games with delaying the articles. I think for the holidays, a little bit of negotiation in the trial, that's fine. Anytime the impeachment looks like a tactic, anytime they've looked like it's a tactic, that's better politics for the Republicans than it is for the Democrats. Anytime the focus is on the allegations themselves, well, then that becomes a lot harder for Republicans to defend and a lot easier for Democrats to hold their ground.
But has that ship already sailed? The fact is that public opinion has not changed. You did not get one Republican vote. And the Speaker had said prior to all this, that was fundamental to impeachment.
I feel like that we're going to litigate this post-trial in many cases. And this is where we may not. It's information that comes out going forward. I mean, don't forget, we have an active investigation into Rudy Giuliani. You've got the president himself. I mean, the day after Mueller testified is when he made the phone call that got him impeached, right? He is likely to do some things that sort of test this a bit. And I would just caution you on the polls. I think on impeachment polls versus general election polls. Here's what is also interesting in the NBC Wall Street Journal poll. While it is clear that the president has hardened his support, and that didn't happen organically. They spent some $20 million doing this over a 3-month period. He has fought this to a draw. That's good news for him. But if you've noticed, the number of people who say they're definitely voting against him has not ticked down, that ticked up. So maybe support for impeachment ticked down, but it didn't mean that support for Trump somehow ticked up. Think of impeachment. Remember the recall in Wisconsin? Scott Walker survives it in May of 2012. Barack Obama carries the state 5 months later. There was 10% of voters in Wisconsin that didn't like the recall process and didn't like Walker. And I think that there is this group of voters who don't like the impeachment process but also don't like Trump. So be careful reading impeachment as purely an up or down on Trump.
Who's on the program?
We're going to be talking to one of the jurors coming up in the trial, Cory Booker, Democrat from New Jersey, and then we will hear from the White House, one of their lead defenders, if you will, on the impeachment and all things, Mark Short, the Vice President's Chief of Staff. And
you believe there will be a trial, because there's one point you thought there might not be.
Yes. Well, I will tell you this. I think Mitch McConnell would love nothing more than to see this Merrick Garland, as I call it, meaning put it in suspended animation. But he has too many vulnerable Republicans that can't afford to do that either. I mean, this is sort of both sides have risk here in playing this game.
Chuck Todd, host of Meet the Press, 8 o'clock Sunday morning. Thank you very much for joining us. Always great to see you.
Thanks, Conan.